What's going on, Space Monkeys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden. We're going to continue with Dreamland today. We're going to read Canaries in the Coal Mines. That's the new chapter. But first, I want to give you guys a chance to vote on picking the next book for the book club. I already did a Rockfin episode and a Twitter poll on it. There are less than 10 votes right now, officially. So every vote matters. If you really want one of these 4 books to be the next for the book club, feel free to leave a comment. The one that gets the most comments and votes via the Twitter poll will be the winner. So they're all pretty much in the same vein. One of them's fiction, 3 are nonfiction. This first and foremost, this one's the one that's winning right now, but it's not winning by a lot. So we'll just have to see, is The Untold History of the United States by Oliver Stone and Peter Kuznick. Now it is that thick. That's a very, very long book, but if you guys are really good and if you guys want to do it, it might be worth it. It would take probably nearly a whole season, certainly half a season probably to read it, but I was flipping through it the other day. It seems amazing, and right now I think it's leading the way with like 4 or 5 votes total. So again, if you want me to read it, I absolutely will. I have no qualms with that. I was so excited. I found this for $2 the other day. Oh, wonderful. Next up is another really long one, first in a 2-part series, Endgame by Derek Jensen. I have both volumes, and I haven't read them. I was recommended them PFC Season 1 by one of my friends, and I decided to keep an eye out for them, and I found both of them. They are, I think, 700 pages each, and it's basically the first Endgame is called The Problem of Civilization, where Jensen is talking about how civilization is likely to collapse and what that might look like. And it seems very readable. It is definitely something I was putting on my bucket list. But if you guys want me to read it right now, we can read the first one. We can read the second one. I don't care. You guys let me know. That's Endgame by Derek Jensen. I've got another one here. Fiction, The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. Now this is about the Nazis and the Holocaust. I've heard it is very sad. So if you pick this one, there's a chance I might cry on my show. It happens. Again, sort of a longer book, but I have no qualms reading it. My wife read it. She said it's wonderful. I have not read it, though. So if you guys want to read it, if you're up for some fiction, I will read The Book Thief. And then lastly, Walter Lippmann's Public Opinion. This is about a very famous book. A lot of you have probably already read it. It's about how public perception of things is crafted, and again, all about propaganda and ad men and how exactly our government and how advertising manipulates public perception. So it's supposed to be wonderful. I have not read it again. I found this one for like 10 cents the other day. A little bit shorter, but if you guys want to read Public Opinion by Lippmann, that's fine with me. Just leave a vote, comment below. Now let's continue with Dreamland here. We're about, I think, a little less than 2/3 of the way done with this. Dreamland by Sam Quinones. This is called Canaries in Coal Mines, page 197. For years after it closed, David Proctor's Plaza Healthcare Clinic would be known as the boot camp for dirty docs. But Proctor's influence went far beyond the unscrupulous doctors he brought to town. Instead, he showed Scioto County that starting a pain clinic was easy. Given an opening in Ohio state law, all you had to do was lease a building and hire a doctor who had a DEA permit to write prescriptions for Schedule II narcotics. Pain clinics were now sprouting up across America as the opiates became commonly used for chronic pain, and the undertreatment of pain was identified as a public health problem. Not all pain clinics were pill mills, but as opiates became the principal treatment for pain, the pain clinic was often prone to abuse. It attracted patients relentlessly demanding drugs. Doctors found it hard to maintain standards. Some clinics were never legitimate, but many others started with good intentions and were simply pushed off course by patients' constant demands. No place in America had more of these shady clinics per capita than did Scioto County, Ohio. Over the first years of the new century, a local junkyard owner, an attorney, a prison guard, an ex-bailiff, and a couple of convicted felons, as well as several doctors, all opened clinics, hiring doctors with permits to write the prescriptions and see patients at a rapid clip. Jody Robinson cashed in his car stereo shop to open a pain clinic, through which he became, according to a later indictment, one of the region's biggest pill distributors. Portsmouth became America's pill mill capital. The clinics were some of the only locally owned businesses to form in decades in Scioto County. People said the area's entrepreneurial spirit had drained from Portsmouth. In a twisted way, the pill mill showed that locals could still be as entrepreneurial as anyone. Billboards for pain clinics greeted travelers along the highways entering town. Drug dealers and users for miles around came to Portsmouth to stock up on pills. One key to the pill mill explosion was the discovery of locum tenens lists, a clearinghouse for doctors around the country seeking temporary employment. Many of these doctors were desperate. They had license problems or couldn't get malpractice insurance, or alcoholics. These were the docs Proctor hired. Now other clinic owners did the same, and quacks flocked to Portsmouth. Tracy Bias, a convicted felon, opened 3 pain clinics and hired doctors from New Mexico, Michigan, and Iowa, as well as 2 from other parts of Ohio. Clinic staffers or locum tenens doctors found work at pain clinics, learned the business, and then went out on their own. Soon, plain old drug dealers got in on the scam. Kevin Huff, a longtime marijuana dealer, set up a trailer alongside a highway in Chillicothe, Ohio, hired a nurse, and sold so many pills that he had shoeboxes full of cash lying around his home. Several of the new clinic entrepreneurs had worked for David Proctor. Nancy Sadler worked for Proctor and then ran Fortune Williams's clinic. After Williams went to prison, she and her husband Lester, Ape Sadler, it's a great nickname, Ape, almost as good as, what was it, Jelly Donut earlier, or Jelly Roll, or Baby Ruth, I can't remember what it was. Donuts. Lester Ape Sadler set up their own pain clinics. Proctor's one-time attorney, Gary Rocky Billeter, opened a pain clinic as well. After Proctor's arrest, his employees Denise Huffman and her daughter Alice Huffman Ball opened Tri-State Healthcare and Pain Management. A DEA investigation later found that people would drive for as many as 10 hours to the Huffman's clinic, pay $200 cash to sit with a doctor and get a prescription for OxyContin, Lortab, Percocet, or other pain meds. The mother and daughter hired temp agency doctors and threatened those who refused to prescribe pain medication. Several physicians left immediately. In April 2003, the Huffmans solved their labor issues when they hired a Chicago chronic pain specialist named Paul Volkman. Volkman was so prolific that the Huffmans had to open their own pill dispensary in the back of a tri-state after local pharmacies refused to honor his prescriptions. This pharmacy was somehow legal under Ohio law. Wow. By September 2005, Volkman had written prescriptions for 1 million pills of various kinds. Another 1 million pills were deemed missing due to the lack of any records kept by him or the Huffmans. A DEA investigation estimated that Volkman and the Huffmans took in some $3 million from patients paying $200 per visit and who lined up well before the clinic opened. The Huffmans paid staffers in pills, but staff also accepted bribes, in pills usually, to move patients up in line. Volkman rarely performed anything resembling a diagnosis. Instead, he met with patients briefly, asked them a few questions, one of which was whether they were undercover law enforcement officers. He often ordered urine tests, but ignored them when they showed high levels of opiates. He had one patient sign a death waiver in which the patient acknowledged he might die from taking what Volkman was prescribing. At least 12 patients did die while Volkman worked for the Huffmans. He later opened his own clinic in Portsmouth, then in Chillicothe, and 6 more patients died. For a couple of months, Volkman even had a clinic in a house on a residential street in Portsmouth's Hilltop neighborhood. He was in one of the bedrooms, said one addict. The front room was the waiting area, and the kitchen was where you got your blood pressure checked out. He wrote me some crazy amounts of medication, 480 pills one month. No MRIs, no CAT scans, no nothing. There were other pill mills. Volkman and the Huffmans were only part of the story in Scioto County. But not many in the county paid much attention to what was developing in and around Portsmouth. The area was abandoned by politics and power, and even by many who had once lived there. Plus, those who remained behind, who were the first to get caught up in the gathering storm, were complicit in their own degradation. so no one paid them much attention. Folks like those from the Lucasville Bottoms. I was poking around southern Ohio, trying to understand all this, when I encountered a lawyer named Joe Hale. Hale has silver hair, a baritone voice, and a Marlboro Red always at the ready. By 1999, he had been a defense attorney for 15 years in Scioto County. A country boy from the Oak of Appalachia, Hale had a client list that was mostly court-appointed. The money wasn't great, but it kept him busy and in the courtroom. One place Hale made a lot of his money was Lucasville. Lucasville is a small town a few minutes south of Portsmouth along Highway 23. It has a prison that holds Ohio's death house, where death row inmates are executed. Across the street from the prison is a high school. Lucasville also includes a couple of stoplights, a gas station or two, and a few failed restaurants. But to Joe Hale, Lucasville was the Bottoms. The Lucasville Bottoms are flatlands that flood every decade or so when the nearby Scioto River rises. The rest of the time, the Bottoms provide cheap housing, most of it of the single-wide mobile home variety. Many of its residents are on federal disability. Many of them are small-time criminals. Joe Hale had defended hundreds of Bottoms residents through his career on charges of drug possession, domestic violence, and drunken disorderly. The Bottoms are a clannish place, but Hale became well known there. He got used to the rhythms of the Bottoms, which revolved around government checks on the first of the month. People rarely visited the doctor, but when they did, it was to guys like David Proctor who accepted cash. In the late 1990s, as David Proctor was heavily prescribing OxyContin, a client named Tony Blevins showed up to do some work on Hale's house with a bottle of pills. Blevins called them OCs. He offered Hale a few. Hale had no interest in the pills, but he noticed that several of his usually energetic construction workers were like zombies. He came to find out people in the Bottoms were crushing the pills and injecting them. Most Bottoms denizens didn't know how to do that. A profession called shooters thrived in the Bottoms for a while. For a free hit for themselves, shooters would inject users who were new to the needle. Over the next 3, 4, 5 months, Oxy was all you heard about, Hale said. Some people were very experienced, very well known, with years as drug users. They started overdosing and dying because they were people with criminal records and never made a contribution to society. Nobody gave a damn. This had been going on for a while, to Hale's growing alarm, when in April 1999, Jack Burton paid him a visit. Burton was the unofficial godfather of the Lucasville Bottoms, influential among many families, rumored to be involved in crime. A gaunt fellow, Burton drove a white sedan, and in it, slunk down behind the wheel, he cruised the Bottoms. Burton's daughter Jackie had just died of an OxyContin overdose. Hale had defended Jackie Burton after a couple of barroom brawls that landed her in court. The first time Jackie Burton was shot up with OxyContin, she nodded off, and the shooter who injected her wasn't paying attention. She was probably dead for an hour before anyone noticed. Now Jack Burton was in Hale's office asking what he could do about the company that made the drug. "Jack," Hale told him, "you're asking me to take on a major pharmaceutical corporation." He turned Burton down, but months passed and the deaths in the Bottoms mounted. Hale kept thinking. "This is a lawsuit that could mean a lot of money," he said. In May 2001, Hale filed what is believed to be the first Oxy-related wrongful death lawsuit against Purdue Pharma on behalf of Jackie Burton. Purdue Pharma has unleashed a pharmaceutical atom bomb into the free flow of commerce with absolutely disastrous consequences that they should have foreseen, he told the Portsmouth Daily Times. A Cincinnati law firm eventually joined Hale's case, preparing it as a class action lawsuit, and they asked Hale to find more plaintiffs. Hale found petty thieves and able-bodied disability recipients, people whose already dysfunctional lives had been further mangled by opiate addiction. Several months later, the Cincinnati law firm withdrew from the suit. Quote, "Nobody told me that a class representative shouldn't have a bunch of felony convictions," Hale said, "and that there were all these ideals these class action plaintiffs were supposed to have." The Bottoms sure didn't produce anyone that a TV camera or jury would find sympathetic. After a few court hearings with him at one table or 6 or 8 well-dressed Purdue attorneys on the other, Hale dropped the suit. But he always saw the Lucasville Bottoms as an early warning sign that Ohio and the country ignored their peril. A Purdue Pharma press release later noted that the company had won every suit filed against it, and that didn't surprise Joe Hale. By the time you were in a position to have a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, you were already likely to have fucked up so badly that you wouldn't work as a class action plaintiff, he said as we drove around the Bottoms one spring day, down lanes of narrow mobile homes and junked cars. But that's how it was as the opiate epidemic took shape in southern Ohio beginning in the late 90s. Portsmouth, the Lucasville Bottoms, and other forgotten places of America nearby acted like the Canaries in these now shuttered Appalachian coal mines. Just no one in the country listened much until more respectable types sounded the same alarm and famous people died. All right, we'll continue on page 202, 50, 100 cases a month. Also, don't forget to vote on one of those 4 books. We've got The Book Thief by Zuzak, The Untold History of the United States by Oliver Stone and Kuznick, Public Opinion by Walter Lippmann, or Derek Jensen's Endgame. Please leave a comment below. Keep fighting that good fight, guys. Talk to you later.